Television. Nothing brings us together more than the small screen in the corner of the living room. It's entertained us, made us smarter, and, to my mind, brought us some of the most potent music of our times. It's given us a lifetime of golden tunes and has touched more of us, and arguably more profoundly, than the greatest pop classics. TV composers are unsung heroes, and this series is my celebration of them and the shared musical history they've left us. The music that became the real soundtrack to our lives. In 1971, I heard a TV theme that I found completely captivating. Even just hearing the opening 4 chords takes me straight back to my childhood. And when you hear them, you may feel the same. Composed by the maestro of film music, John Barry, his theme for The Persuaders instantly draws you into a Playboy world of glamour and suspense. An exotic soundtrack of plucked harps and then futuristic synthesizers. Now, this was hugely influential on me in ways I couldn't expect. Because at the time I was at school and I hadn't got a lot of confidence except at the piano. And we had a big assembly hall with a piano up on the stage. So during lunchtimes I'd slip in there and I'd play stuff. The day I first let loose with the Persuaders theme, heads started appearing round the doors of the hall. And this whisper, Persuaders, Persuaders, Persuaders. By the time I got to... had an audience. Over the next 3 weeks, I'll be exploring this magnetic power that TV music holds over us.
Telly music is absolutely the portal straight into an emotion and a time and a feeling and an era.
In this first episode, I'll examine how iconic theme tunes have shaped and underscored our lives.
All of a sudden, you hear a theme tune that you haven't heard since you were a child, and it brings back a whole flood of memories.
I'll be meeting the composers whose themes are the shop windows for some of today's biggest series.
When the main title comes on, that's the calling card, and it just signifies to everybody, okay, let's get ready, let's have a good time, this show is about to start.
In later shows, I'll look at the impact of the hidden persuaders of TV music. The creators of adverts, channel idents, and jingles. Thank you so much. It's fantastic. And finally, I'll be showing how musical scores brought cinematic scale to TV dramas and documentaries.
You could be listening to Ben-Hur or something, you know. It is epic.
So don't touch that dial. Stay tuned for the hidden history of how television music became the nation's jukebox. Music written for television is a very particular art form. It needs to grab you, be immediate, stop you from switching over or switching off. And none more so than the musical haikus that have ushered in the programs we cherish so deeply and have planted themselves indelibly in our heads, the theme tune. These small distillations of the very essence of a program's identity have become part of the national consciousness, reflecting society and even national identity. And what form of TV has more unified the nation for over 50 years than the one that holds up a mirror to our everyday lives? The soap opera. Debuting in 1954, BBC's The Grove Family was the first soap of its kind in the UK. Its jaunty theme, nowadays so evocative of post-war Britain and named family joke, was the work of a little-known film composer named Eric Spear.
Well, now it's on. Either leave the room or keep quiet and don't ask any silly questions.
Did Ed say what time he'd be back?
As a series, it only ran for 3 years, a curio long consigned to history. And the same could have happened to Spear, were he not later commissioned to write the theme for a new soap on rival channel ITV. Due to run for only 6 weeks, and for which he was paid a mere £6, the piece that he wrote came to define Britishness in a completely unique way.
As usual, they'd left the music till the last minute and the programme was coming on in a fortnight's time. And in the end, I was dragged out into the street in a typical Manchester day, pouring with rain, and we looked up in a little alley, a bit like Coronation Street as it is now, and suddenly the sun broke through the clouds, and the director of the whole epic said, "That's the music I want." So I said, "Well, why didn't you say so in the first place?" and came back here and wrote it.
Spear's theme for Coronation Street has survived untouched for 60 years and over 10,000 episodes, conjuring up an entire dramatic mood in less than 30 seconds.
It's a melancholy tune, and it's a melancholy tune accompanied with, pictures of roofs. What it says is, beneath these roofs, you're going to be taken into these lives that maybe have tragedy within them that you didn't really know about.
Love? You can read about that in library books. It's marriage that counts. Look at Oggy and his missus. It works. And Jack and Ken Barlow. Aggressive coexistence, not to do with smooching in the back row of the pictures, and it works.
It says that life might be tough, but there is emotion and drama within that life.
You said you liked it.
I say out, don't I? What pleases me, and that is Pigswill.
And it is a northern life. It's really important.
Hearing that iconic music in this place is so symbolic of a feeling, a timeless feeling, unchanged since I first saw the programme and that music went into my consciousness and stayed there. That is the Proustian nature of TV themes. They're unchanging. They'll be with us all our lives, and they're something we cling on to whilst the world changes more and more. Times may change, but our connection to the small screen is one of life's constants. We hear its tunes and we feel them deeply. Living room pocket symphonies that act as a sort of cultural glue.
You hear a theme tune that you haven't heard since you were a child, and it brings back a whole flood of memories. And sometimes people can pinpoint exactly where they were the first time they heard a theme, or they can remember how it made them feel every time they heard it.
Theme tunes resonate throughout our daily lives. Get it right, and a seemingly simple 30-second theme can become its composer's signature tune, more than any number of chart hits ever could. In the 1970s, Simon May had a successful pop career. But when in the 80s he was commissioned to write the theme for a rival to Coronation Street, he had little idea how much it would come to define his career and British television. Did it ever occur to you that this tune would actually end up in the national consciousness?
Oh, it was one of the biggest buzzes of my whole career to walk down the street and hear people in the street, workmen, shop assistants, whistling or humming my tune. I mean, that was amazing.
Rage. He's dead.
Dead drunk.
No, he's dead.
No, it's not. It was quite clear to me it was going to be very edgy.
You were saying with it quick. Right.
And I came back with a really edgy, dark piece. He said, no, we don't want it dark. We want you to write something that brings people in from the garden or in from the kitchen. So I said, oh, you mean something feel-good, melodic? They said, yes.
But significantly, in EastEnders, its closing theme, with its cliffhanger powwow drums, has also come to define the series. A TV music landmark that happened more by accident than design.
I started off the first part, the opening titles, I thought, and I was going towards the end titles, but in between I thought, let's have a bit of fun. And here we are with the Cockney piano.
Great.
And that's in the middle of the section.
Right.
The problem was, however, how do you get out of that? So I asked my drummer, Graham Broad, fantastic drummer, and I said, Graham, what we need is a distraction from that Cockney bit to get us back to the main titles and the main feel. So I said, why don't you sort of give me a lovely tom feel? Let's use the EastEnders hook. Da 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 doom doom. Just as we were mixing that sound, the exec producers, they said, wow, that's fantastic. So that's the end titles, is it? And I thought, yes, it is.
Those booming drums represent the grit and grime of EastEnders. But to my ear, what's made this theme endure for 35 years is May's master melodist's ear for a hook, making the theme infinitely adaptable to a whole range of emotions and storylines. In a heart-tugging orchestral form when Kathy Beale flew off into the sunset. Or indeed a soulful interpretation, reflecting the multicultural vibe of present-day East London.
In the very first instance, I created a reflective version. It was called Julia's Theme, and Peggy's theme for Peggy Mitchell. All those different variations have been used in different episodes, usually at the end. Very sentimental, reflective. But I think one of the reasons that maybe a lot of my themes do thankfully work is because I'm a songwriter. And obviously a TV theme isn't the same structure. It's much, much shorter. But it still has to have that chorus hook, I think.
That idea of the hook, the TV earworm, it captures our attention. Right from our earliest years, back to when I recall being entranced by TV as a child. In those far-off days of the early 60s, I would forever feel a spine-tingling thrill whenever I heard this stirring boy's own theme, the sound of adventure and excitement. Robinson Crusoe was what I remember first as being filmic music. It was lush, it was grand, it was symphonic, and it went straight in and stayed, as did Robin Hood, which just started with shoo, and finished off with that wonderful ballad, Robin Hood, riding through the glen. The other thing that children's programs had was sometimes a very simple melody over the top of a small chord change. Think of something like the Magic Roundabout. This is what I feel so strongly about children's TV music when I was growing up. It gave me and my generation a whole series of pop themes, songs, tunes, whatever you want to call them, that went in very, very deep and are still there. And get this, it's the same for all of us.
What you're referring to is autobiographical memory, a form of episodic memory where we are brought back to a specific time and moment. Why does music do this? As children, we actually are in a time of our life when we need to learn a lot about our world, learn language, actually, and that's probably happening with, music that we hear. Music has this very fundamental function in the beginning. There's very few things that can bring us right back to when we were children. And I think that might be why we have these kinds of very strong emotions, or experiences with music, because not only are we remembering, not only has it reminded us of a time in our lives that we don't think about all the time, but it also is giving us emotions now, and they just sort of enhance each other.
I think the TV themes that I grew up with are probably the predominant influence on my creative thinking because I can't get them out of my head. Cartoons and kiddie show music was bouncing around in my brain my entire childhood.
Welcome, friends, to our little show here on September 7th.
I wake up singing theme to a children's show that I grew up with, the Heck Harper Show, Heck Harper's Chorale.
Even little children love Marianne.
He was a Portland, Oregon cowboy, and I wake up with that. Yes.
The TV music we loved as children is as fresh today as it was in our days of short trousers and sherbet.
A friend of mine called you.
When, almost 50 years ago, folk musicians John Faulkner and Sandra Kerr created the music for Oliver Postgate's wonderful series, Bagpuss, they had little idea of how much it would continue to touch the hearts of young and old.
The moon.
Bagpuss is golden in everybody's memories. Tell me, how did you give Bagpuss his magnificent music? Because that, I think, people are here and they're straight back to 1974 or 1978 or 1982.
Absolutely. Well, this jolly thing came in handy. Oliver wanted a sound for when Bagpuss woke up, right? So I just have to get into the role for this. So I just went, what about this? But no, stroke of genius, when he went to sleep, I went.
So you're still performing these songs now to audiences nearly half a century later. What sort of reaction do you get from those audiences?
Often tears, lots of smiles. The last show we did was last October at Hartlepool Folk Festival, do you remember?
Yeah.
And there were a couple of quite elderly men in the audience with huge beer bellies, with Bagpuss T-shirts on. And we, yes!
Why the tears, do you think?
Oh, don't we all feel a bit tearful when we remember lovely things from our childhood?
Deep nostalgia.
Yeah. Takes them back to a time when they felt secure. They watched with grannies or granddads or mums or dads or whatever. And the remembrance of that and how secure that felt has left them with a sense of, well, we felt secure and happy in those days.
And I too have one particular theme that still gives me that same feeling. From its opening notes, I'm carried back to warm Saturday evenings, spent in the reassuring company of a friendly police constable known as Dixon, played by Jack Warner.
Oh, good evening, all.
Dixon of Dock Green was my and my family's safe space on a Saturday night, and as it transpired, the nation's. At the age of 9, I was allowed to stay up and watch Dixon, usually after a variety show or a sitcom. And as the closing credits rolled, that would be time for my bath. The music originally employed under the titles was a very well-known piece indeed from the music hall. Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner. But the piece that I remember, and was so synonymous with those warm opening monologues of George Dixon's, was written by Jack Warner himself, and for me is pure nostalgia. This classic Dixon theme, first heard in 1958, soothed British households for almost 20 years and became part of Britain's cultural DNA. And a favourite of none other than Her Majesty the Queen.
It is a little-known fact that, in fact, you helped write that signature tune.
I did, yes.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Well, it's rather strange, really, because I was going to America and I had an idea for a song called Blimey, I'm a Limey. So it goes, it was either Blimey, I'm a Limey and I'm proud of it too, or I'm an ordinary copper who's patrolling his beat. So if I ever go to America, I've got 2 lots of words for one tune. I'm an ordinary copper who's patrolling his beat around Dock Green.
But even by the early 1960s, the breezy lilt of Warner's Home and Hearth theme tune was already somewhat nostalgic. The TV cop show was moving towards more dynamic storylines that mirrored the changing face of urban Britain. The streets of Merseyside became the setting for the sirens and social realism of the police squad known as Z-Cars. What did I make of the theme? Well, I think even then I knew that Z-Cars was on a different planet to Dixon of Dock Green. The music was much more urgent and unstructured than Dixon. And it also went out on a weeknight, which felt more like a kind of a working day somehow than a weekend. The whole thing, particularly that theme, felt like a siren. A police siren. It was much more redolent of guys driving cars than the Bobby on the beat.
Johnny Toddy took a notion to go across the ocean.
From the start, Z-Cars' theme tune was already deeply rooted in northern folklore, adapted from a traditional Mersey folk song, Johnny Todd, a favourite play chant of local children. So it instantly touched the hearts and minds of generations. Moreover, it's testament to the enduring power of the TV theme as a unifying cultural phenomenon.
Walking on the Liverpool sands.
Within just a year of Z-Cars' debut, its siren-driven theme was adopted as the anthem for Everton Football Club. And almost 60 years on, it still rouses passion and pride at the start of every home game. In the golden era of the classic 60s cop show, television had cemented its place as the nation's prime source of entertainment and its soundtrack. But this was also an era of a sea change in British society, where the prospect of affordable foreign travel opened our eyes to a world beyond Coronation Street and the Mersey beat. And it shook up what was expected from the TV theme tune. Less gramophone, more hi-fi. A sonic cocktail, shaken, not stirred, of international glamour, intrigue and exotica. Which first hit our screens with Patrick McGoohan's Danger Man. Appearing in 1960, 2 years before Sean Connery's James Bond graced the silver screen, John Drake was a proto-Bond, product of the Cold War, appearing at a time when viewers found it easy to believe that espionage was a force for good, keeping us safe from whatever evil empires lay behind the Iron Curtain. And the music that ushered him on screen was no less suave and sophisticated, and written by a master of the TV theme tune. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Edwin Astley. Danger Man's jazz-inspired theme, its harpsichord and boppy rhythm, was a total breakthrough, bringing the epic orchestration of blockbuster movies to the gas-fired British living room.
I was at the Danger Man recording, and I just remember the production people all looking at each other and going, wow, this is so exciting, you know. They all knew they had something that was a bit different, yeah.
It's a hook, isn't it? It's an earworm.
Absolutely.
You hear it,
yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah.
The actual tune, it's sort of a caper rather than heavy-duty, we're all going to die spy stuff, isn't it?
And Pat McGoohan was very serious all the way through, though, wasn't he? So it didn't really reflect the character that much.
Tell me about that little turn. Tell us, what are the notes doing there? If you want to learn to play this at home, this is how you do it.
So it's a key change, but it's a very clever one.
Yeah, you don't expect that's jazz, isn't it?
It is jazz.
Throughout the 60s, Astley's theme tunes, rooted in his expertise as a big band arranger, were the signifier of a new class of British television. Lush, full-bodied, and with the advent of colour TV,
It's a very, very straightforward theme, but because it's just those few notes, everybody knows it.
Yeah. But there's one further 60s theme tune that, for me, sums up the ambition and sheer scale of what the TV theme had then become. Towards the end of the decade, Patrick McGoohan cast off his Danger Man guise and created one of the most bizarre TV series ever seen, set here in the fantasy Welsh village of Portmeirion. Its name, The Prisoner. Its theme, a tour de force by Australian composer Ron Grainer. Its genius, the way in which its dramatic shifting moods manage to tell the entire backstory of the show's protagonist. No words, only music. But what music! This is a long sequence, and Grainer does the classic teaser whereby he takes elements of what's going to be the theme and drops them in right from the start. So the first thing we hear is the biggest hook of all. That ba-ba-bum, that's going to come in underneath it. So the hook is what we've already heard. The bed is ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum with lots of drums, lots of percussion. We've got a slightly 60s, slightly kind of psychedelic world, but it's one in which there is punchy danger, threat underneath it throughout. A really great theme, without any doubt. To me, Ron Grainer is one of the more unsung heroes of the TV theme world. he could turn his hand to absolutely any genre. He broke through in the early 60s with the Maigret theme, which I had as sheet music, and I learnt it when I was 12 years old. Then there's Steptoe and Son, another great theme, this time for a sitcom. Then the 1970s, Tales of the Unexpected, with its kind of weird barrel organ feel. But in the annals of TV music history, Ron Grainer's greatest legacy is something he very nearly didn't write at all. In 1962, the BBC needed an otherworldly sound for a primetime science fiction programme. This French ensemble, Structure Sonore, was lined up to give it an avant-garde sound unlike any TV theme before. But when talks fell through, the job fell to pioneers of the BBC's very own homespun avant-garde ensemble, Delia Derbyshire and Dick Mills of the Radiophonic Workshop.
The first stage in the realization of a piece of music is to construct the individual sounds that we're going to use. To do this, we can, if we like, go to these sound generators here, electronic generators, and using all of these, we can build up any sound we can possibly imagine almost.
Ron Grainer came along with a A4 manuscript and left it to Delia to visualise the instrumentation and put it together with a bit of physical help from myself. And then Ron came back and we played it to him and he said, did I write that? So I think Delia said very nearly, but you know, a compliment nevertheless.
In the modern age, it's perhaps hard to imagine how groundbreaking Delia and Dick's sounds were.
All we have to do is cut the notes the right length. We can join them together on a loop and listen to them.
Created in an almost Heath Robinson fashion, with just 3 tape machines, primitive sound generators, and a whole lot of experimentation. Amazingly, almost 60 years on, Dick Mills still has those original recordings, and he showed me how the tracks were layered, only this time with more modern technology.
Each line of the music would have been made and assembled on each different tape machine. So first of all, bass. Delia created a bass from a single strand of steel. So she twanged the microphone, then manipulated that into the bass notes. Then second tape machine that plays Ron's tune. They're going to show clouds or something visually, so why don't we have the third machine carrying bits and pieces and twiddly bits and decorations? And once you put it all together,
it's the sound that caused a generation to hide behind the sofa, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. It certainly brought them in from the kitchen, which was the required thing. Yeah.
It is brilliant, Dick. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it's unique.
Now one of the longest-running series on British television, the character of the Doctor has regenerated over the decades, and so has his theme, evolving with tastes and technology. But with one of the most dedicated fan bases on British television, I'm not sure I would relish tinkering with such a classic. How daunting was the challenge of making a new arrangement of such a well-loved theme?
Utterly daunting. There's no other way of answering that question. It was terrifying. I didn't watch it growing up, but I was very, very aware of the Radiophonic Workshop and actually studied some of their work in school during music classes, which was really important for me because it was part of expanding the idea of what music is. And I felt like it just made sense for there to be a clear connection there. And so then it was really a case of experimenting. And I just played around. I really tried to make it my own. That was the other thing as well. I really wanted it to be my interpretation and my voice clearly, but also completely honouring all that had come previously.
I can just imagine the point at which you breathed out when they said yes.
Oh, gosh. I mean, considering the lack of breathing before then.
Segun Akinola's arrangement is a perfect marriage of his classical background with a real love of the experimentation Dick Mills and Delia Derbyshire brought to the series theme almost 60 years ago. He brings a blockbuster superhero slant to the sonic identity of a very 21st century Doctor. But not all TV themes are as bespoke, the product of a producer's brief and their composer of choice. Once upon a time, our legendary theme tunes were simply a matter of happenstance. Particularly in the 1960s and 70s, the themes of the day would often be plucked from the sleeves of one of these. It's a library record, stock music sent speculatively to radio and TV stations. The product of an entire industry of backroom jobbing composers, it was cheap to use and a very good response to the increasing demands of television production. However, should synchronicity strike, a library composer could find that a track that he'd written and recorded in just a few hours had taken on a life of its own. This comprehensive collection of thousands of library albums is the result of one aficionado's 25-year search to find and own the music that to him is inseparable from a lifetime of personal memories.
I found them in jumble sales, I found them in charity shops, I found them in record shops, I found them in radio stations when they've closed down, all over the place. I was interested in finding the music that I grew up with. So all my mates were listening to like Genesis and the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. And I was going, oh no. I was standing next to the telly with a cassette machine, recording bits of music. This is Marching There and Back. So this is Sidney Dale. A friend of mine played this in the early 90s. And when I heard it, I was sort of overcome with a sort of euphoric oddness. But luckily I found the library that issued it. Quintet Modern Jazz, Reg Whale. This is getting quite niche now. Reg Whale, Quintet Modern Jazz. This is Fruity Fruit, which is the Farmhouse Kitchen.
Ah.
So to certain people of a certain age, like me, when you hear this ding ding ding, you go, it's Farmhouse Kitchen. You can see the gingham, you can see the cakes being made. And it was on every day. This was a daily show. Dramatic Backgrounds on KPM features the track Approaching Menace by Neil Richardson, which is the theme to Mastermind. And if you think about how a director or producer or editor would find a track, so you go, it's a game show, it's going to be quite sinister, it's a black chair, it's got a dark, sinister beginning, and it's got these doom, doom, and then this strange brass. We are in the British Library to listen to British Library music. First up, Library God, #1. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Keith the man Mansfield.
Thanks to the dedication of enthusiasts such as Johnny, classic library composers such as Alan Hawkshaw and Keith Mansfield are now recognised as giants of the TV theme, stepping out from the shadows to perform the miniature symphonies of yesterday to today's enthusiastic crowds. Dare I ask, it's about the genre, not just the memory, then?
Bit of both, actually. Bit of both. And there's, you know, there is that sort of comfort thing in being 10 and watching the telly, going to get a taxi biscuit from the biscuit tin and that sort of thing. Who knows? All I know is that I'm stuck with it and I can't get rid of it.
The fact that library music is incredibly collectible, has its own dedicated fan base, and is performed now with reverence for its once forgotten composers has come as a complete surprise to me. But thinking about it, maybe it shouldn't. Our close connection to TV and that drive to hold on to something deep within it has actually only grown over the years. Like Johnny Trunk, I too can measure out my life in TV themes. Thunderbirds, with Barry Gray's rousing, transporting march into the future.
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this.
The Young Ones, the heady post-university years of anarchic freedom. Yes. And now, family life, and the joy in sharing a great programme together, with one show above all others, firmly the brand family favourite. From its debut in 1989, The Simpsons was the ultimate in pushing the boundaries of the TV theme. A multi-part rush of vibrant orchestration and eye-popping colour, inspired by the show's creators' nerdy love of all things telly.
You know what? I grew up obsessed with cartoon themes and TV themes. In fact, when I was 11, I got a tape recorder and I recorded all of my favorite themes. I love the Jetsons, and in fact, all of the Hanna-Barbera themes of the early 60s. The Jetsons was probably one of the most complicated TV themes of the time.
Here's Boy Elroy.
And it changed rhythms, and there was weird melody changes, and it promised a lot more than ultimately the show delivered, but it was a good promise. In fact, I would say that's the story of the 60s. And so when The Simpsons came along, I said, I'm going back to the 60s, and we're going to do this bombastic, overblown theme. And viewers of TV Guide once named the Simpsons theme the most annoying theme of all time. I'm very proud of that.
This piece is not only an amalgamation of musical ideas, it's actually an amalgamation of TV themes that were very close to Matt Groening's heart. First up, the Jetsons. Now, the Jetsons was... But you have singers singing, "Meet George Jetson, bum bum ba-dum." Listen to those notes. It's the first three notes of the Jetsons that's also the first three notes of the Simpsons theme. Then there's also the reference to family sitcoms, not just animation. I reckon this middle section here that feels a lot to me like The Honeymooners, Jackie Gleason, which was like this. And then finally, Hanna-Barbera, of course. Have a listen to this. That is pure Hanna-Barbera. Top Cat, Flintstones, Huckleberry Hound, that 2D feeling of stuff running around very, very fast. So this whole piece is an homage to TV themes. And it was down to maverick composer Danny Elfman, renowned for movie scores such as Batman and Edward Scissorhands, to bring the sound of 60s TV to the 1980s and beyond.
I give Danny complete credit for the cleverness and ingenuity of that theme. And when we recorded the theme, it was mind-blowing. And at the end of the day, everybody went home, and I was sitting there, and we played back the theme, and there's a female chorus that says, "The Simpsons," and it sounded like the Simpson, the Z was missing. And so Danny Elfman and I went into the recording booth and went, Z. And that, if they listen to the theme very closely, you can hear a duet with Danny Elfman and myself. My proudest moment in showbiz.
What struck me is that it nailed the colours of the series absolutely to the mast, in that it was going to take you deep into TV culture in a way that hadn't been done before.
The opening theme visuals were very much inspired by the Flintstones, which Fred Flintstone is trying to go home from work. In our version, it's Homer trying to get home to watch TV. The theme lends itself to so many permutations. We, changed the visuals every time. We called it the couch gag, when they jump on the couch. And what's funny is that we've never articulated this. The audience instantly got it.
The Simpsons is TV that revels in its very TV-ness. For its 500th episode, it extended its theme music into an orchestrated celebration of every single couch gag ever. Endlessly reinventive, it keeps its audience on its toes, right to the very end.
So what have been some of your favourite reinterpretations of that closing theme?
I think my favorite one is Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth gave us a distortion in the guitars that has never been heard on The Simpsons before or since. They were fantastic.
And as this symphonic arrangement of Danny Elfman's theme shows, the once simple 30-second TV theme has grown longer and ever more expansive to keep up with our 21st century television landscape. Capable of filling concert halls as much as the living room. Themes for big-scale blockbuster series such as the epic Game of Thrones are bringing the scale and ambition of feature film titles to our increasingly not so small screens.
I was finding my way around the episodes, and then the main title actually came up. And then they showed me the beautiful opening with the cities popping up and everything. And the key word that was said was, it needs to be like a journey. So what is that? How can we capture that adventure and the mystery and the journey all at once? And then we decided that this main theme will stand for the show, for all the characters.
Two minutes is a hugely long amount of time for a theme. Was that a good thing or was that a challenge?
No, I think it was a good thing, because I feel you actually get a chance to develop and to tell a story, and especially with something complex as Game of Thrones. I mean, I feel very fortunate that it had such an impact on people. I mean, I still remember the day when the first episode aired, and then the next day these cover songs started popping up on YouTube, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. When I grew up watching TV shows in the 80s, when that main title comes on, I always felt that's the calling card, and then you'll hear it, and and you go, oh, it's time to go, my show is starting. And that's how I treated Game of Thrones, and I thought, I want this to be the calling card. When that's on, it just signifies to everybody, okay, let's get ready, let's have a good time, this show is about to start.
And so, in mega dramas such as Sherlock, the BBC has embraced this new widescreen landscape, bringing in an actual feature film composer. James Bond stalwart David Arnold, with collaborator Michael Price, to cinematically capture the essence of the series and its characters.
When you're planning to come home.
I hardly knew myself, Mrs. Hudson.
Title sequences are like the shot windows of the entire show. Even though there'd been hundreds of films about Sherlock, there wasn't a recognisably Sherlock Holmes theme that people could whistle. So, in a way, you could create the entire thing from scratch. But you just hope, that cheesy old line, if it comes from the heart, it goes to the heart. You hope it lands in the right place.
And the same with Dracula as well. It's kind of like if you can't... there's been some brilliant Dracula scores, but, I wouldn't be able to hum you the Dracula tune. There isn't. I don't think there is a Dracula tune. And so it does give you a very specific... I always feel that the music for Sherlock or Dracula or any of the things that we do together isn't mine and isn't David's, it's the show's.
Released into a TV landscape way beyond the old pattern of communal 9 p.m. style watching. When you can now download programs on a phone and skip straight to the heart of the action, is this the end for the classic TV theme?
One of the great detrimental things of all this is that shared experience, the communal experience of everyone watching the same thing at the same time. Watching a new show with a new theme, and everyone would be talking about it the next day because everyone was watching it at the same time because it was only on at one time and you didn't have any choice. But, this is where we are.
Whatever streaming service you're using, auto-skipping and missing the title sequences, you watch more than one episode. For a large part of the audience, they are not going to have that single place and time experience where a theme tune is essential to call to action, call them in to watch the show.
Nonetheless, I feel hopeful for the survival of the great TV themes. So integral are they to a show's identity, and to our identity, that when they hit upon a cracking melody like this one from the Sweeney, they can't help but draw us back again and again, and worm their way into our brains and the world at large.
One of the interesting things about theme tunes, earworms, what makes, tunes get stuck in our head, is the fact that it, can be highly ubiquitous and seemingly, not worth attending to, but it has this ability to capture our attention when we're least expecting it.
I recently heard the theme from Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and it just brought back a whole flood of memories of being a family and watching it. And that was what really made me just appreciate how important theme tunes are and how they go far beyond just being about the particular series and can very much be about your experiences with family and friends.
Is it possible that the theme tune can become bigger than the programme?
Yes! Good question.
Well, if you think about it, Mission Impossible, yes. Thunderbirds, yes.
Some others do have them.
Some others have them.
Clearly.
Tomorrow's World.
I think it's a sign of the extraordinary power that music has got when it lands straight in your heart and your gut. And when that works really well, there's nothing like it.
I couldn't agree more. We collect TV themes like family photographs throughout our lives. They become part of our personal memories, defining who we are and who we once were. The best of them are simultaneously haiku and epic narratives, served up in our defining years in our most intimate domestic spaces. They are powerful and personal in a way no other music can be. Next time, I'll be exploring how short pieces of TV music can create brands that sell everything from fizzy drinks to TV channels.
You knew full well as soon as you heard it, it was BBC Two. You don't have to look at the pictures, but it wasn't a jingle.
And I'll be collaborating with leading jingle composers to create the sound of my very own brand.